Ready? Okay. First of all, we're entering tomorrow night. It's tomorrow night. Shabbos is Zirkind Menachem. It's the 9 days, and there's a Haidah of the Rabbi, which I think is particularly relevant this year. The Rabbi says that on Erev Zirkind Menachem a person should give to tzedakah the amount of 2 or even better 3 meals, because it's a lot of people, they fast in Erev Zirkind, and particularly this time of the year, and I think particularly this year it would be good to give some extra tzedakah tomorrow, just an advertisement.
What did you say about
The Rabbi said to give tomorrow Erev Zirkind the amount of 2 meals, or Maasei, even better 3 meals.
Okay.
Besides making all good achlatas for the 9 days, to hear siyumim and all the things that we do to try to increase in good activities for Mashiach. This week is Zirkind Menachem, it's Shabbos Chazak, it's Maatos Maasei, it's a whammer jammer from all sides. So, first of all, Menachem is a month which literally means Menachem, the comfort of Father, the comfort of Eibusha. We think that in Galus, we're suffering. The Eibusha is having a good time. He's watching and he's sitting back on his couch, watching the show. So we say no. First and foremost, the Eibusha is the one that feels our pain, and therefore we Menachem, the Jewish people, so to say, have the ability to bring Mashiach and to comfort Eibusha from his pain. The question we have, you come this time of the year, we finish off, we read the Torah, Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, right? The Shabbos Chazak. What does Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek mean? Why do we say Chazak when we finish Chumash? Because we're trying to say we finished reading, the Torah, so now let's strengthen ourselves. Let's, we made one accomplishment, let's strengthen ourselves to move on. Question is, what is the Chazak? There has to be some message that's propelling us Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. You don't, not out of the blue, you just open up a bottle of whiskey, you drink mashke and say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. Particularly this time of the year, a person can say, what's the Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek? We're in Galus for almost 2,000 years. Every year, every day brings with it not necessarily good news. So why this time of the year we say Davka during the 3 weeks Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek? So Nekudas Rabbi explained, the point is, the Rabbi said a number of times, is the famous story of Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Rabbi Akiva lived through the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, and not only that, but he himself eventually became a victim of the destruction. He was killed by the Romans a number of years later. And he was going, before he was killed, he was going with a number of other Tanoim. They were going to different stories, but the story, the Masech, the Maatos ends, they were going towards the Temple Mount, and they see a fox coming out of the Holy of Holies. And the other Chachamim started crying, and Rabbi Akiva starts laughing. So they asked him, why are you laughing? He says, why are you crying? They said, how could we not cry? We see how the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. We see how a fox, the holiest part of the earth, where it says that even the Kohen Gadol, if he was not up to par, he wouldn't make it out alive. Only he was able to go in there once a year, and here foxes are roaming there. So we could not cry. He said, that's exactly why I'm laughing, because there's 2 prophecies. One prophecy speaks about how the Beis HaMikdash should be totally destroyed and become totally desolate, that animals will be able to roam. And there's another prophecy speaking about the greatness of the Geulah. So he said, until I did not see the negative prophecies being fulfilled, I was not sure that the positive prophecies will be fulfilled. Now that I see that the negative prophecies will fulfill to the T, so I know that the prophecies of the redemption will also be fulfilled to the T. It's a very powerful story. There's a lot to ponder over here. But obviously Rabbi Akiva wasn't being oblivious, he wasn't being naive. He experienced the destruction just as well as any of his other Chachamim did. But the Nekudah is Rabbi Akiva had the ability to see within the negative, he was able to see the positive that it brings. And this was the Chiddush of Rabbi Akiva. The other Chachamim did not have it for whatever reason. Rabbi Akiva was able to see that. And the Chachamim told him, Akiva nichamtonu nichamtonu. They told us, you comforted us. The Rabbi says, when you look at exile, it seems as something which keeps on going forever. It's almost 2,000 years. That itself, from one perspective, could make a Jew give up hope, right? It's right. You go with you would go by statistics. What's the statistics that Mashiach will come? Not too much. 2,000 years almost we're in Galus. So that's one way of looking at it. It's one way which the more the Galus prolongs, the darker the night gets, the more a person gives up hope. The less of a chazak v'nischazek he's experiencing. But if a person realizes that the whole purpose of the Galus is just Yirida l'Serech Aliyah, the whole purpose, as much when we see how the darkness of the Galus is beyond any description and things that completely defy logic or even logic of Kedusha, that shows that the Gula must also be so great, right? What did the Rabbi say? When he was a child, before going to Cheder, he was imagining how great the Gula must be if the Gula will be able to thank the Eibishter for the Galus, right? What was that famous letter the Rebbe writes that he started was as a small child, he was imagining the picture, the future redemption, that it should be such a great redemption that we should be able with a complete heart to thank the Eibishter for the Galus, because we will see how great the redemption is. So if the Galus surpasses logic, defies description, then that means chazak v'nischazek. That's the chizuk. The chizuk is, don't look at it on the surface. Look at it, if you see how dark it gets, the only reason it could be getting so dark is because the light must be also shaloi berach, much greater. So that's one nekuda. What is the connection with Maatos and Maasei? So Maatos means a stick. What type of stick is it? It's not a piece of metal that you take from the ground. A stick, a mata, means a piece of wood that was first a branch of a tree and you pulled it off the tree, you plucked it off the tree. Now it becomes hard. Now, from one hand, the stick, when it was connected to the tree, was able to grow, right? It was soft, it was pliable, it was bendable, it had sap in it. The reason why it's soft is because it has the sap, it has the nourishment from the tree. Once you break it off, it dries up. But on the other hand, when it dries up, it becomes hard, it becomes strong. So that's a mashal for Galus. Galus, when Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael, we were, things were much better on one hand, but the takeoff, the strength of the Jew, that he's hard, that he doesn't negotiate with darkness, that he overpowers the darkness, is revealed in Galus. What is the connection with Maasei? Maasei, the Rebbe says, interesting thing. How does Pashas Maasei start? What was the first journey, by the way, after Har Sinai? Right? The first journey, the year by Har Sinai got to tell you, would think, what was the next journey? They probably, they must have gone to a place that was very holy. The next journey was Kivrei Sataiva. Right? The Yisum Har Sinai. Kivrei Sataiva. What's Kivrei Sataiva? Kivrei Sataiva means that the people had a great desire, a great yearning for meat. So the Eibusha gave them slug, he gave them quail. And then they died and they were buried there, Kivrei Sataiva. So you look through most of the journeys, very negative things happen. But when Torah calls something a journey, we're not, if you're falling down the Grand Canyon, you won't call it a journey, you would call it a nice trip. Torah calls it the term journey, it must mean that there was a journey. So Hashem Dev Taka teaches that the Jewish people had a choice. If they would have internalized Matan Torah, they also would have reached Kivrei Sataiva. But Kivrei Sataiva would have had a different meaning. Note the Baal Shem Tov explains what it would mean. Kivrei Sataiva means would be the place that you bury the taiva. You bury the taiva, you bury the desire. Instead, they were buried because of the desire. They became so, permeated with desire for Gashmis that they were buried. But if they would have used out the opportunity in a positive way, they would have buried the Gashmis. But nevertheless, the Rebbe explains it's still called a journey, because every Yirida l'Serech Aliyah. The bottom line is everything in life, you're always going higher. Doesn't seem to, that's the thing. You have to wait to the full picture. There was a person, it was interesting Yechidus that a certain individual had with the Rebbe, living Torah had it a number of years ago. He mentioned there was very few interesting points he said. One of the questions he asked the Rebbe was, he said he doesn't understand, like everyone, all of us who don't understand different questions we have, how could Eibush do this, how could Eibush do that, things go on in the world that don't seem right. So the Rebbe told them, there's a pasuk in Hazinu that says, Hatsur Tamim Poli. Hatsur Tamim Poli means that the Eibush's actions are complete, are exact, they're righteous. But there's a deeper insight here. The word Tamim means, the Rebbe gave him a mashal. If you're going to a construction site, what are you going to see? You're going to see a bunch of bricks over here. You're going to see a bunch of
demolition.
demolition over there. You're going to see a bunch of pipes. You're going to see a hole in the ground. The place will look like a churban. Once the thing is complete, after the project is complete, when you look back, you could start seeing how this all led to the construction of a beautiful building. So the Rebbe says the whole of history is one big puzzle. We're living through a small piece of the puzzle. When the puzzle will be complete, we'll be able to look back and we'll understand what the whole picture was. But now it's not complete. Hatzur Tamim Pali. When the whole picture is complete, we'll see the master plan to put it all together. What's the connection in your name? What's the connection in Pashas Maasei? The Rebbe says, Rashi explains that the Jewish people already finished their journeys. And now Moshe Rabbeinu is repeating all the journeys all over again, right? He gives us let's discuss where we were, right? It's like you finished camp, and now you're making you're going back and all the good times you had. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling it. What's the point of going through all of that? The Rabbi says a very deep insight. When the Jewish people were journeying, what they experienced was negative things. By a lot of the journeys. Moshe Rabbeinu says, once the journey is now over, we can now look back at the journeys and realize that there was good behind it. It all led to good. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbe says in Galus, the same thing as Galus is a journey. And now, Taka looks like a Yerida, but when Mashiach comes, we'll go back to the journeys, we'll look back at every single detail, we'll see how it led to something higher. So the point is that even though now we don't experience it that way, but a Jew has the koyach, a Jew is called a mata, a Jew is hard, a Jew is tough, it's a good advantage. A Jew has the ability that despite the fact that he doesn't experience, he doesn't see the aliyah, but since he believes, he knows that eventually there's light at the end of the tunnel, he has the ability to be strong, and even at the time of the greatest darkness, instead of being pulled down, he could say no. He could say chazak chazak v'nis chazek. Agaponim, what does it mean by Poel Mamash? Poel Mamash, it means a number of things. The Rebbe says interesting thing. The Rebbe says when a person is in a journey in life, there's a joke that they say, the Yarmirov. Small Gertin, the Yarmirov Levi.
Yeah.
The Yarmirov said a word that there was a guy goes into a prison ward and he sees a religious Jew there, Choshev Yid. So he asks him, what are you doing here? So he says, whatever, they caught me once stealing $10,000 cash. Says, sekundish, vipasta, says, no. He says it was a weak moment, schwache moment. So the guy told him, if in a schwache moment, if in a weak moment you took $10,000, how much would you have taken in a strong moment? So what's the Nakud? The Nakud is sometimes there's different journeys, we have ups and downs, and sometimes there's a shvacha moment, there's a weak moment.
The problem is we have so many of them.
Yeah, we have many journeys. And one day a person could be over the world in outer space and back and forth, particularly today with WhatsApp, you don't have no idea where you are from second to second, yeah? So a person goes through a journey. So in order for a person to stay stable, he has to use Maatos. He has to have a journey. He has to he can't stay stuck in one place. He has to move on. The person can say, no, I don't want to, I'll just stay, no pain, no gain. You have to do things. But at the same time, you need to always refer back to your Mata. It always has to be that part of you that is not negotiable, the part of you that remains steadfast. Then, even when you're in a journey, you remain strong. You won't fall. But in order for your journeys to be true journeys, right? When you want to, when the person wants to invest, whatever it is, he wants to go into a new endeavor. So he's taking a risk, but there has to be a mata, there has to be at the same time, he certainly wants to go more, but he has to keep his ground. He can't just, so there's Alderach Zen Yiddishkeit. We always journey, we go trying to go higher and higher, but journey brings with it the problem that there's weak moments, high moments, but a person always has to keep the mata. So this is the chizuk that we get from Pashas Maasei, from this time of the year to remain strong. Not only despite the negative things, but the Rabbi says, particularly because we see the negative things, we need to be a little bit like Rabbi Akiva. And the Eibusha should help that when we have that approach, you should see Menachem, we should have a true comfort. We say Samchenu K'moisi Nisanu, right? There's a pasuk we say in Tillim. What does Samchenu K'moisi Nisanu means? It means you should make us happy like the days you made us suffer. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, right, like the days, you understand how much the day, if you put together a account book of how much we suffered in Galus, a long list that the Eibusha Samcheinu K'moisi Nisanu. But the bottom line is that we believe as a Zayvat Zayin. So Mela, when you see, bottom line is we should remain strong, we should remain steadfast, we should move on in life. That's also what Maasei means, and we should have Mashiach now.
Amen. L'chaim, very nice.